It's time for another Flashpoint Q&A here on our delightful Flashpoint channel. Joining me, as always, is Thorin and also Mick from FACEIT.
Hello.
And
How you guys
FACEIT,
doing?
Mick, sounds like I'm going to address you with some extremely bad news right off the bat, but I appreciate that.
Fired from Flashpoint. Right? Well, let's see that then. So, assuming still come on the show.
Nice for it to be. Face it, Mick. We don't need you anymore. That's it sounds very intense when you put the face it in front of things. Where'd you come up with this name?
It's a good story. We were trying to find something that represented, competition and challenges, and facing like your opposition, but also like your internal demons. And but at the same time, we were trying to find a 6 characters or less.com domain. So we had a bunch of different names. And ultimately, we managed to buy the domain FACEIT.com. So we said, okay, that's it. It's going to be FACEIT. So that's the story.
I've got an anecdote for you about FACEIT that you might like, actually, which is one where Mick himself won't know this, right? But back in the day when they used to mainly do these tournaments from Italy, that's where their studio was, it was in Milan, and they would do like Quake and Counter-Strike Cops, and so DDK used to work for them back then. Obviously, this is in line with DDK leaving FACEIT officially today to become freelance. And so I came over to do a few of these cups, both Quake and Counter-Strike in like the early days of CSGO, for example. And this was Quake Live, I think, back then. And when we were doing them, right, in Quake Live, they actually had someone make like a song that was like related to FACEIT. Basically, it was called like the FACEIT song or something, wasn't it? Like you actually had the line FACEIT in though, right?
Yes, absolutely.
And so that was as you can imagine. Yeah, go on, tell us the story.
Yeah, so that was our first investor in the company, which is also happens to be a friend. And he comes from the finance world, but he's an artist at heart, like he's a musician, and was trying to express himself. And one night he had the inspiration, and he wrote this FACEIT song and put it together and arranged it, and we started using it as opening music for our broadcast back in the days with Quake Live, our Sunday Cups. And it became fairly popular, I would say. Like with people that even created
That's
remakes.
The issue there, though, Mick, because here's where the anecdote really picks up some steam. And obviously, if anyone knows these anecdotes, DDK is going to be the butt of the joke at the end. It's no surprise on that one. Certain people, DDK, Dust, Anders, they're always just the butt of the joke. It's one of the brilliant things about having them around. You need someone to be like that. So this is what happened, right? If anyone knows, especially old school esports events like Counter-Strike, where you're working 14 hours a day, ESL used to do this as well. They always have like 1 or 2 songs that are always the break song. And if you work the event, remember, you can't go anywhere. You have to just sit there the whole time. So if you ever work these events, it's infamous that no matter what the song is, by about 2 days in, you want to, it's like Chinese water touch. You want to die rather than ever hear the song again. The best example ever would be, if anyone knows like that classic, one of like the not that even bad modern day Prodigy albums, that like Invaders Must Die. I remember ESL took one of those tracks and just played it like every break for like 7 days when I was doing IEM or something. It was like, yeah, even if you like the track, you can't handle it after 3 days. So right, when I was at this thing, and I'd only done a couple of these cups, and I couldn't handle hearing this song every break. So I turned to DDK and I basically just say to him like, fucking hell, Dad, I bet you must hate this song, right? Because obviously he's been there the whole time for every week. And because he's DDK, goes, nah, I like it. It's brilliant. Did you hear the part about FACEIT? And it's like, that story's really more about who DDK is than the song, the FACEIT song. Just what an unusual character, right? This guy actually still was loving that song like 20 weeks in or something like.
The worst offender was WCG. If you ever did a WCG, because they would literally play that horrible Beyond the Game song.
At least that was like parody value, though. Like it is kind of like a ridiculous song in itself, isn't it?
Yes, I mean that has its own comedic value, but when you've heard it for the 50th time in one day and you have to listen to it for 4 days straight, it becomes super annoying super fast.
So anyway, RIP.
Funny you mentioned that, because at the time when we had that song running all the time, I was the producer / director / audio engineer / cameraman / everything else in our production. So I, grew pretty offended by that song. When
Of course.
So let's talk while we wait for some questions. First off, any plans to do Pop Flash for EU or Korea? That's for Valorant. No, not currently. I would love to do an international Valorant tournament, but that's not up to me. It's up to Riot. So get through this next week, and we'll see where things stand. Let's talk about...
I mean, the joke, by the way, is, everyone obviously asks me all the time because of my FPS background, like, when are you going to get into Valorant? Like, the real joke is that it's actually the one game where, as far as I can tell, UK people are actually fucking good at an FPS game for the first time in about 10 years. Like, apparently we're dominating. Like, I'd look at some of the top lineups and say, who the fuck are all these guys? It's like washed up CSGO players and then just people from the UK being toxic, as usual.
It's a tragedy. We lost our best observer to Valorant.
Yeah.
Oh, Sliggy?
Yeah.
Yes.
Ah, right. I didn't know that. Fair enough.
He's been coaching.
And joined Team Liquid now.
Yeah.
Ah, right. Yeah, that is a shame then. There's not that many. If people don't know, there aren't actually that many like really good observers. There's a lot of like average ones, as you'd expect, but there's only a few that are really good.
Speaking of Valorant, with you guys doing your first Valorant tournaments, what are you looking in regards to casting talent? Seeing a lot of established casters get a lot of flack in the scene for not having that CS background. Is that important? Here's what's important to me. It's important that I brought people who had either a background in Riot Games or in CSGO to this event, because I think the combination of those people has the biggest draw for the community. Either you're going to know people from League of Legends or you're going to know people from CSGO, and I think that's where I'm going to start in terms of building talent out for events that I think will actually draw in additional viewers or have a sense of familiarity for people. That's just in the short term. In the long term, we'll see who rises to the top in the scene and who's good. But is
there overlap between League of Legends and Valorant?
You'd be surprised, actually. I think because it's a Riot game, many League fans at least tried it. And
right, I think
we announced Doa already. I think if you're a League fan and you haven't watched a Valorant event yet, then you might watch it because Doa's on it, right?
Yeah.
Whereas if you're already a Valorant fan, you're going to watch the Ignition series anyway. So I figure that's probably a good way to go in terms of getting people on board.
I noticed, by the way, one thing I will say is, again, as I predicted, by the way, it's not CSGO that's losing that many people. Like, for example, as far as I know, I don't think Nitro had many offers, and it's one of the reasons he just switched over. And he's probably also just, like, he was at the top. Like, he wants to be in, like, a team way worse. Dude, Overwatch, this never gets reported because, unfortunately, no one outside of Overwatch gives a fuck about Overwatch. Overwatch is still, to this day, losing big names, people who were good players. Because anyone, by the way, with anything vaguely a CS or like FPS background, like the second they just don't care about Overwatch, they leave. Like I saw like Baby Bits, or isn't he in like FaZe Clan now or something ridiculous? By the way, the most obvious branding fucking matchup of all time. Like,
perfect.
I'm glad they all figured that one out. That's a slam dunk right there, isn't it?
Well, also Raucus, who used to be on FaZe when in the early days of Overwatch, so he's back on FaZe now.
Okay.
Now Raucus wasn't as big of a name because he wasn't starting anymore, but Baby Bay had a really good season this year on the Atlanta Reign. He's an extremely good mechanical player. But when I talk to these guys like Corey or Baby Bay or Raucus or Sinatra, I've talked to all of them. They want a more aim-heavy game, and I think with Overwatch introducing more and more barriers and like decreasing the importance.
I don't think that year where every DPS player had to play Zarya probably stuck in people's craw a little bit. It probably didn't it? Let's be real. Like, if you know that can happen to you, I know in theory it can't now, but like that would make me think twice. Because as I said, I've never seen a game that was like that one. The only thing that's equivalent was, as a quick side tangent, in League of Legends when they famously made top lane from like a hard carry role into the fucking tank only for like 2014. Yeah, like that's the only other time I've seen it where it's like, dude, what sport would work like this? Like you are never going to be a wide receiver and then just go, oh, sorry, that doesn't exist anymore. It's like, we're all just running backs now. Like that'll never happen. But that's what's mad about esports. It's like your career can really just be not over, but radically changed tomorrow by a fucking game dev. And even worse, again, without making too much of a tangent, another thing about game devs, right, is just keep them off camera, keep them in the. Let us blame them, right, but don't let us ever know who they are. Because if I ever find out like the game dev is Daniel Z. Klein, well, now it's over for you. Like now the criticism has to go to 500 out of 10. Like I can't know that they're making a shit character and then they're an asshole. That's just intolerable. Come on.
Wow. The
Well,
flame.
what
The
about the
flame.
Valorant developers? Because they've been pretty public and
I
out
actually
there.
think overall the Valorant devs have done a good job of communicating pretty straightforward with the community about the game development and the state of the game. I think they've been decent at it, you know?
Yeah.
I haven't seen much.
Yeah. Here you go, Thorin. Will Thorin be a potential talent for future Valorant events?
No one knows, including Thorin. That's the problem. The real thing is, like, I haven't put almost any time whatsoever into Valorant whatsoever. Like, the only time I've ever addressed it, which, by the way, this is one issue that might be a problem, we'll see, is I already know from Overwatch that if you criticize the business model of a game, people who genuinely have mental illness will say that you hate the game and everything about it. And therefore, if you ever decide to play the game because you then like it or follow it, like I like to follow it, Overwatch was a game I enjoyed watching. They just say you only did it as a grifter for money. So if that's going to happen, I definitely won't be involved. Like I'm not going to waste my time like I did with Overwatch doing that. Like that was, I don't regret doing the shows because they were good conversations, but I almost regret that the fans were allowed to watch them. If that makes sense. So not really a great scenario to be in, is it? So if Valorant is going to have like reasonably sane people who can understand the premise that just like they play 50 games, I'm allowed to play whatever games I want at any point in time. Yeah, maybe I'll dip my toe in if I find it an interesting game. I'm going to give it a chance. But at the moment, as I've said every time, I have to see it's going to be a proper esport. If people don't know, like, especially as a content creator, aside from if it's a game you love, like if Quake ever came back with not Quake Champions, like an old school version like Quake 3 or Quake Live, I would go and cover that game, even if it had a tiny following and very small esports, because I just love the game. But the problem is, if I'm just going to cover a game essentially as part of my job, like because it's a big game, then it has to have all those factors. I can't sink like a year into it like some people are now and then find out that like it just dies out. It's like Heroes of the Storm. That is just, like, in that scenario, if you don't love it, it's just a waste of your time, I'm afraid. And I always say, if I have any extra hours at the moment, I'd put it into watching more regions of League of Legends or something, wouldn't I? So it just doesn't make sense at the moment, but it might in the future. I'm not closing the door till I see where that goes.
I think that the viewership has been very good for the first few Ignition Series events, particularly in North America, and I think there's a lot of interesting players. Like
there's a lot of overlap, I will say. That also is a good sign, by the way.
Like, you know, there's a bunch of. I really love all the Overwatch players that have moved over, and like I'm really excited to watch them play more in Overwatch or in Valorant rather. I think there's a lot of good stories, like kind of tier 2 players like FNS or obviously Swag, now known as Brax.
In terms of actual talent, if you think about it, I've got to be one of the only content creators who ever did Overwatch and CS:GO. So like, to be fair, I would actually know, like, it seems like I know like 80% of the pros already.
Yes, you would. Yeah. And I think it's fun to see those banned players from the iBuyPower match fixing scandal have another chance at this game, because it means they're starting with some really good players. And, you know, obviously Sinatra being the MVP last year of Overwatch League. So we're talking about Psalm also, who's coming off of the second place at the Fortnite World Cup, is playing for Homeless now. In terms of Valorant play. So there's a lot of
people who haven't played esports games before. Cool.
He played Heroes of the Storm too, so he's doubling down on that one.
Fucking hell, this guy's got the worst. Listen, if Valorant doesn't make it, this guy has the worst career choices of all time. I get everyone's going to say now already. Are you ready, Monty? This is where people are different. They're all going to go, "Ha, idiot! Didn't you hear he came second in the Fortnite World Cup? You pay me $10 billion to clean up a bunch of elephant shit. I'll say no. Like, who cares?" It's everyone. No one else figured out money's mad overrated. What do you think you spend it on? Obviously not a fucking brain, otherwise some of you guys would have already converted your wealth and you wouldn't be asking stupid questions. Anyway, whatever. So no one actually said anything. I predicted what Twitch chat would say, and then I flamed them for something they didn't even say yet. But in my mind, I've decided they said.
Exactly. It's the classic Thorin strawman.
There you go.
Just like...
I'd destroy those strawmen. I'll burn them straight up. Yeah, exactly. I'm the goal. I'm like Mayweather versus strawman. I've never lost. They can't fight back from one. That's a problem, isn't it? So...
Once again, Thorin shadow boxing with fictitious fans. You love to see it. You love to see it. So anyway, that is to say, like, I think it's had a solid beginning. I think we need a lot more information about what Riot's long-term plans with the game are before we can really get super excited about the circuit or what that's going to look like. We need more maps. Like, there's only 4 maps in the game right now, so need a little bit.
And some of those are bad.
It's very early.
Yeah,
right?
It's very
the game is just being released, so but there's definitely potential. A lot of, I mean, looking at all these pro players coming from Counter-Strike,
the stories
Overwatch,
are great.
All these games. Yeah, it's great stories, but also like these guys are betting their careers on this game, right? So they it takes some faith.
And Riot does historically support esports titles, right? So that's a somewhat encouraging sign. I don't necessarily agree with all the decisions they make, but they have a chance to make new decisions now. I look forward to their new decisions.
I've got a question for you, Monty, because I have literally no idea about this. Is Valorant first of all, does it exist, and is it actually a popular game in like Korea and China? Does anyone know?
So I can answer that question in that. Let me look up the PC Bang stats right now. It was about 1%. So currently, it is at 10th place. It is 1.16% of playtime. But
so not that great then, because Overwatch, people don't know, actually initially banged in those PC bangs. It was going really hard.
So what happened is that the Vanguard anti-cheat has created conflicts with the software that the PC bangs use in order to operate. Okay. So like, you know how you have to like log in and stuff like that? I think the multiple users, something like that, is screwing it up. So what's happening at the PC bangs is that it's not available, as I understood a few weeks ago, at every single PC. Like they have to set aside specific PCs just for Valorant for people to play on.
Right, okay.
But that's also not reflective of how many people are playing at home. And I do know from anecdotes of people I've talked to in Korea that they're not having problems finding games quickly or getting match made. So the PC Bang rankings may be a little bit off on that, but it certainly has had troubles because of the anti-cheat screwing with all of the software. I don't know about China. I would assume it's a similar situation if it's a software issue with the internet cafes. I think if they fix that, then obviously the popularity will go up. But it
seems like a weird oversight, though, because if people don't know, that's one of the things that actually Riot should be praised for, is how they handled distribution in those countries for League of Legends. They were actually way ahead of the game for a Western company. Way ahead.
Yeah.
Like to this day, Valve hasn't figured out the shit that they've done. Yeah, exactly. That's the reason CSGO isn't big in those countries.
Yeah, so I don't know how well it will do once those issues are ironed out. I also don't know how well it's doing in Europe, because it seems like viewership is much better for the North American tournaments right now. So I'd assume that it's bigger in North America, but I don't know. Let's talk about, Mick, there was a question for you about what did you learn from the London Major that FACEIT ran?
I'm glad you asked. First of all,
I know that was a rough event in some ways.
No, it definitely was. And, I'm not going to be standing here saying it was the best event, a great event. We made a lot of mistakes. Obviously, like I need to start from Duncan. We didn't hire Duncan, and was the first CSGO major in the UK. So that was a big mistake. But we talked about it and we squared things out. No, I think logistically it was really, really complicated. The scale of a Counter-Strike major, I don't think people realize.
You really won an event that big as well, right? Because your events were always like weekend events, and that was when majors were like 3 weeks long or something, wasn't it?
Yeah, but more than that, we had the minors that were 4 weeks long, with the broadcasting pretty much every day for 8 to 10 hours a day, and then we had all the different, the challenger and legend stage and champion stage that took another 3 weeks between 2 different locations. We were at Twickenham Stadium first, and then we moved into Wembley Arena, and there were like a lot of different issues, and some of them I'd say like we should have planned better, and maybe we didn't necessarily have enough expertise in certain areas. Others we were also pretty unlucky. For example, when the infamous internet connection problems we had at Twickenham Stadium, we had 2 separate lines with diverse paths, so they're not like the same ISP. They have they're completely independent for redundancy, which is the best practice that everyone in esports is using for broadcasting. And the first line failed, and the second line was working, but the system that was supposed to switch from the first line to the second line for some reason didn't work. and there was just like no way to get that fixed quickly. So we just had to delay the tournament that night. So yeah, I mean, definitely, a lot of lessons learned. I think, we had some amazing things as well, like the atmosphere at Wembley Arena. It was sold out. We had over 10,000 people. It was insane. It's a shame, and it got a bit wasted. Also, like the matches were not great. I think in the playoffs, and that's what people remember majors for, really. Like if you get like great matches, people.
I think almost every series was a 2-0, unfortunately.
Yes, so 6 out of 7 were 2-0 exactly, and the final was just like Australia's like stomping on Navi, with like a so like
obviously Timo doesn't control that. That's just unfortunately the players. That's just what happened in the match, isn't it? So you just got lucky on that one. What I would say is this is like, if people didn't notice, when we launched Flashpoint, one thing I stressed in all of the PR and the media we did is that we are not trying to compete with ESL in terms of doing massive stadium events, because that's one area I feel like every other TO should give it up to ESL in that regard, because what they do with that like roadshow approach of going country to country, sometimes countries they've never been to, and doing enormous stadium events that span like 7 days, 5 days, that is very hard logistically to pull off.
It's really
hard.
You
have to have a million, like Rick's saying here, you have to basically already plan what's going to go wrong and already have the redundancy there, even if it doesn't go wrong. So like, I know people are already going to think like, why am I overhyping this? What about TI, Thorin? What about Worlds? Those are single events in the year. And those they go there like 3 weeks early to set that show up. ESL goes like 2 days before and shit, and like puts all the scaffolding. Like they just know what they're doing, and that's one area where no matter what you think of ESL in other areas, in that area they are the best. I'm very impressed with that aspect of their business.
The only other company that I've seen do that is OGN, and they have to do it only within Korea itself, right, or in China or some of these other events. Like they've had circuits in the past. But the speed at which they can do like a grand final every season, and they're doing like, tons of these in Korea every single year. But again, it's a lot easier when you're not dealing with all these different countries and doing it around the world.
Yeah, I mean, it's a function. Obviously, you can learn that. Like, for example, I had the pleasure of visiting the WWE operations. They run 2 events every week, just with the 2 flagship events. But I think they have an insane amount, like over 400 events a year they organize, and their logistics are just insane. They can build an entire production in the Star Stadium and set up everything in a matter of hours, and then the show goes offline, and 2 hours later they're outside of the arena. It's just mind blowing.
Here's an interesting question. So there are some rumors that we will not confirm, but that FPX is going for Alex, the current free. He's not a free agent. He is just not playing for Vitality, I guess is the right way.
He's very much not a free agent. 600,000 reasons why he's not a free agent.
he is a very expensive bench player.
Exactly. Yes.
So, Thor, and I will ask you, if you were FPX and you were theoretically getting Alex, which players would you like to put around Alex that you think would make a strong team?
Right, the problem there obviously is I have to ask myself, which based on what I know is like, do you have money to buy these players? Like, is Alex the big name and the rest are going to be the cheap players? So like an obvious one that just if you look at where he is in his career, the fact that he doesn't really have anyone to go to, he's definitely available. Smoothie, I think, is an obvious one. Like, that would be someone to pick up. He's obviously from the UK as well, so him and Alex might actually be able to coexist. It's not like putting like when you look back now, by the way, they even laugh about it. Like Legia, who I do a podcast with, even laughs about like the scenario where Smoothie was in big, because it's like, yeah, what did you think was going to happen when you take like a young fucking British guy who has like no manners and throw him with a bunch of fucking Germans who want to do regimented gameplay style where like you do exactly what you're told? Like you thought that was going to work culturally. Like, it doesn't matter, you can both speak English. Like, you are far from speaking the same language in metaphorically, boys. Like, that was never going to work. So I even told him, like, that was just a bad idea from day one. With Alex, it might work. So I think he's an example of one. Also, the good thing about Smooya is The downside for his career is he's a much better player than his career opportunities because unfortunately he's fucked up a lot of the shit. He's got bad baggage following him. But it means that if you are the guy who can get the best out of him, he's like a Dennis Rodman type character. He could be a pretty good player. But so as long as you can manage the downside, so I think there's an obvious one because he's just available at the moment. I mean, I would like it if you did a big name signing, obviously, like someone really skilled. So, I mean, since it's with Alex, I think Alex personally can do some good tactics and stuff. So I would just like him, just like a big hitter of some kind. Just give me one big star. You don't need all of them to be really good. Like I think Alex actually, one thing I'm interested about in this team is if he'll actually show like he's really good at using lesser players or whatever. Because all we really know is what he did in Vitality. He wasn't around for that long as an IGL. Obviously, in theory, he can bring any French players in, assuming they can also speak English or whatever shared language they'll speak. So I think there's a lot of options. It all just depends on how much money they want to spend and then who wants to play with him. Because the tough part about that is, even though you could argue in-game leader might be the most valuable position because there's so few good ones, it's also not really the position, unfortunately, that attracts the other players. Like the difference is, if say your first player is Nico, now you can get almost anyone. If your first player is even Glaive, the other players might be like, who are the other guys though? Like the problem is like it's because the star player can just carry a bad team even. Whereas like with a 9-game league, you can't really just make a bad team the best. So I feel like that's the political game is what I think will throw things off. Like the relationships, who wants to go there, who even rates Alex is a question, right? So that's part of the problem they're going to have building that team if they're going to do it piecemeal, like one at a time.
Do you think like the first signing, if this happens, if this is real, should be a major star, so that way they can attract the other pieces? Because as soon as you have the 1-star and Alex, then you're cooking with gas, right?
Especially because you want to send the message with the next signing of like, if I'm signing this guy, I'm willing to get the good bit. And yeah, you attract the players. Because I actually think that's why, even though the team ended up being good, unfortunately, I think that's why Complexity actually ended up initially getting super underrated. Because their first signing, after they'd sort of made all those bold proclamations, was like, we're going to sign, we'll pay any buyout, we'll get the best players. Introducing Blame F. It's like, I mean, Blame F's a good player, but if that's the first name you're coming out the gate with, dude, and you've bragged about like, yeah, people are going to feel like, oh, I thought it was going to be called Zero or something like that. What the fuck? Like, you know, so that's, for those reasons, I think it almost has to be a big star player. Otherwise, you won't get the big talent. You'll have to kind of do a good scouting job otherwise.
They need to convince Olafmeister to come back.
The thing is, though, jokes aside, if he did want to come back, since he wouldn't be in FaZe Clan, I'm sure he could play a different role and probably be more competent. It's also one of the reasons why I'm sad that people like Nitro went to Valorant. I think they had more to give because they could have reinvented their career. They could have played a different role. They could have done what they wanted. When you're in a lesser team and you're the star name, you get a lot of agency. It's not like when you're the worst player on the top team and you have to do what everyone else wants. You can kind of write your own ticket in that sense. So I wish more players would think of that. You don't get stuck in the box that other people put you in. If you want to get out of it, in these scenarios, if you're the big name, you have a lot of leverage.
So I suppose we should talk a little bit about the CSPPA ranking that was released. Obviously, if you follow Lurpus, aka Tommy, on Twitter, you will have noticed that he's done a bunch of calculations based around the CSPPA ranking. I think my favorite one was the fact that it's like if the 16th through 19th teams play in a $1 million tournament, and then the top 24 teams play in a $1 million tournament, that the first tournament gets more points under their ranking. Like, he found a bunch of ways to break it. So we'll just say that it doesn't seem very well conceived. And honestly, guys, if we're criticizing it, remember that this is a ranking that would have given our European qualifier like a crazy amount of points relative to the strength of the teams. Like, this actually benefits us, Flashpoint, because we have high prize pools, but not the best teams, right? So in theory, this is a great ranking for us. We are also not happy with this because it's clearly not good, right? So I'm just saying, if we're criticizing it, then there's something really wrong with it.
I think it needs to be credible if we want it to be adopted across the board, right? So, and it's fair enough to say that it's not an easy problem to solve. Right. So maybe this first attempt was a bit too rushed. But yeah, definitely need some further iterations.
Also, I've got to say, you know that old quote from Hamlet where it's like, fear of death makes cowards of us all? No, I'll tell you what, money in esports makes hypocrites of everyone. Dude, people acted like we did a war crime when we fucked up an online bracket for the qualifier, which we then fixed. No one, I haven't seen the same pros who complain about their chair being 1 millimeter too short at an ESL event. They have no opinion on this ranking, even when their team is like third best in the world and now they're ranked like 18th. They have no opinion all of a sudden. Well, you know what? If you're going to have no opinion because in theory this is politically expedient for you not to have an opinion, go ahead and don't have an opinion about anything, you actual hypocrite. This is one of the reasons why I have no respect generally for like pro players. You know what? I'll just say it like this. You know, normally, right, people would think, well, Thorin, you know nothing about the game. You have to earn the player's respect. Nah, other way around, homie. He has to show me he's not literally just an animal who left clicks shit. Once he proves he can talk and think, then we can have a discussion. So it's the other way around. If pro players want to have opinions and be pundits and stuff, then know that you will be judged on that. It doesn't matter how good you are at acing people in the server. If you're just talking nonsense, criticizing ESL's ranking, which is equal, I mean, it was actually less stupid than the CSPPA one, which says a lot. Like theirs at least was vaguely based in reality. It was just biased to their events, wasn't it? This one is amazing because as far as I can tell, it's a ranking nobody would agree with. And yet everyone's just crickets the whole time. There's no one gives a fuck. No one cares. And remember, this isn't a ranking, by the way. That's for no reason. It's not being used for nothing. Like, at least ESL can even say, we only use this for inviting people to our events. That at least even has a logic built into it. There's almost like a teleology to why they would make it like that. The CSPPA one's the weirdest one ever because presumably the purpose of making it, hence why Flashpoint asked them to do it, is so that events will use it so it's CSPPA approved. So actually this one is more important, guys, than the HLTV rankings because the HLTV rankings are unofficial.
Yeah, by the way, guys, here's what's so wild about this whole saga, right? So we here at Flashpoint wanted the CSPPA to make an independent ranking so we wouldn't have to use HLTVs or ESLs, which are either, in HLTV's case, unofficial, or in ESL's case, biased to their own events. Now, what we could have done is made the Flashpoint ranking and biased it towards us. But we didn't do that. We asked the CSPPA and made a contract with them for them to do it because it was in the best interests of the entire scene in Counter-Strike, right? This is something that is good for everyone. But at the end of the day, they actually have to do the due diligence and get the people, the data scientists or the statisticians who understand the circuit, or they explain the circuit to it, and it will be somewhat expensive in order to make this. But if their goal is, as they say, to keep rankings in a way, so HLTV has a bias towards number of events played. Now, if you're the CSPPA and you're saying, we would like to maybe decrease the number of events that our players play to avoid burnout, like we've seen from many players recently, then they have to create a credible ranking that will change the weighting to performance at the events the teams do attend, rather than just having a more favorable weighting towards number of events teams attend, right? So in order to do that, the CSPPA has to do it. This is not good right now. It can probably be fixed, I hope, as we move forward. But that's kind of the actual logic behind everything here. Good? Good. Let's see here. Why does the CSPPA keep quiet about things such as conflicts of interest and pro players being witch hunted? Should they be speaking up about these things? Yes, they should be. They absolutely should be. I can't answer the question about why they're not doing anything. I don't have any insight. Do you, Thorin?
I mean, I would just say the few times I've had contact privately with CSPPA people, it was usually people where, as you'd imagine, the reason they're reaching out to me is like they're sympathetic to my problems with the CSPPA and stuff. And the problem is they would always essentially just be like, oh, you know, it's just that like the people who are in charge, like they don't like agree that we should talk to the journalists, or they don't want to talk about this, or they think it's better if you work behind the scenes or whatever. And the problem I have with that is certainly in terms of doing a deal, it might well be better to privately work on a deal. It's one of the reasons why actually when people criticize like politicians for not just saying what they're going to do, I always think like, you're a moron, man. Like you don't know how a business deal works. Why would I tell all the fucking terms publicly before I've done the deal? But in the case of CSPPA, this is the issue I have. It's like you've got to play one card or the other. They are mutually exclusive. One card goes like this. I'm here as a political figure or body, and I'm going to enact change behind the scenes using leverage and whatever kind of power and negotiating skills I have. There's one card. The other card goes like this. Technically, since I'll never actually invoke like labor dispute, I have no leverage. So all I am is a vocal element for players. I can speak out and represent what they matter for. Has to be one or the other. At the moment, they try to say they're both, but then only do the behind the scenes one, as far as I can tell. And the issue I have with that is, if people are going to think that you're the voice of the players, you can't remain silent. The premise is to be the voice. Like in that scenario, even if it's just a protest, like for example, I would have liked it if CSPPA, when EPL took those slots away from teams who'd qualified to ESL Pro League, if they'd have just said something like, we as the CSPPA do condemn such action and hope in the future ESL will explain themselves and that this kind of thing will never occur again. Like, even if it wouldn't do anything, I'm not saying you have to go to the table and battle them, but just even being a voice for the player there, I think is important. Like, in history, imagine knowing in history, if someone in 10 years says, so what did the CSPPA say about that when that happened? And every time the answer's like, nothing. They just said nothing. But then they did a tweet a week later about mental health or something like, who is the... It's like the joke is this, you're the voice. And then you go, right, it's okay, guys, I'm going to be the voice for you all. And I'll just remain silent for everything. Because again, I'll just tie it back in. What do you think these companies want who the CSPPA is supposed to be battling? The very people CSPPA is supposed to put the feet to the fire, they remain silent on those issues. Then behind the scenes, maybe they're doing something. I can't comment on that. But publicly, it is a bad look, in my opinion. Because I just want to also know, collectively, what do players think? I think that's a pretty cool thing to kind of know at certain key points in time, What is the consensus? What is the vibe?
I also think the only way for the players to get more actively involved is for them to pay for the CSPPA themselves so that they have a financial interest in the success of the organization. The fact that they don't pay for their own players association is wacky. Like, there should be a percentage of their salary, it could be a very small percent, that goes to funding this thing, in my opinion.
Yeah, and it shows they see the value in the service they're getting, right?
And they would demand the value out of the service.
Yeah, then you have a good reason also to complain. Exactly, if you don't like the way things... Internally, I'm talking about here, but you could get things done.
Yeah, I would argue that CSPPA that is functioning, properly will more than pay for, whatever percentage of the player salaries they're retaining.
Okay, so let's see here. Do partner teams pay for the invites on big events or just an agreement with the organizations? Partner teams pay to be part of Flashpoint. They funded Flashpoint as collectively as a group, but for that funding, they receive permanent invites to our events. That's how it works. Which rankings will be used to find the teams if CSPPA's rankings remain that bad? Probably the HLTV rankings, right? Because
we haven't
ESL
discussed
ones,
it.
so
we haven't discussed it, but obviously the ranking only just came out. But I'll tell you right now, I will never do a tournament that uses a shit ranking like that. So if they fix it, no problem, we can use it. But if it's like that, I'm not using that as fucking seeding. I'd rather just do it myself and be called biased, but have it be accurate, Yep.
Okay. So let's talk a little bit about Flashpoint 2. So as we've said, Flashpoint 2 is going to be after the major, barring the major moving or anything really weird happening to the calendar. So we're talking late November into December for Flashpoint 2. We are examining the possibility of doing it safely on LAN. So, Mick, what does this mean in terms of how we do this during the pandemic?
Yeah, it's definitely very complicated, especially, the two big factors are international travel and keeping everyone safe in the location of the tournament, of the competition. Obviously, international travel is very messy at the moment. There's lots of different countries that are banning each other or institutionalizing quarantines and so on, and especially between Europe and US, things are quite complicated at the moment. It's pretty much like a bilateral ban that we have at the moment. And there's workarounds. There's you can travel through different countries. In some cases, you have to stay in certain third countries for 14 days before you can travel to your final destination. So it's very, very complicated. But I think we've seen that some sports, both at the national level, like the NBA, for example, in the States, managed to create this destinations where they have a self-contained environment that they call a bubble, right? And we've seen that happening at the international level as well. I think if you guys have watched UFC Fight Island, for example, they created this completely self-contained environment in Abu Dhabi, where they had fighters flying in from America, from Brazil, from Russia, and were very impressive in terms of the logistics they had to put in place to keep everyone safe. So we're looking at all those models and examples, and we're trying to learn from them and look at all the best practice. So far, I would say it's definitely very challenging, but we feel reasonably comfortable in trying to achieve a LAN event before the end of the year.
And needless to say, this would be without an audience, guys. So
yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
But the point is like let's get the competition back on LAN. Just so we can actually have some more legitimate competitive results.
Yeah, I think that's we're seeing a lot of demand from that, not just from the fans, but from the players as well. Was talking with some people from Big, for example. They're right now, according to HLTV, #1 team in the world. They were saying we feel like obviously we're very strong online, but yeah, they're super eager. They want to go to LAN. They want to prove it. So the players are super eager to go back to LAN.
Great. Also, in terms of Flashpoint, we still plan to have qualifiers, open qualifiers for that. So we're determining the number.
We would have to if we're not going to have 8 teams. So.
Yeah, we're determining the number of teams right now. There may be more teams available to invite, given that the window of time that we have to work with at the end of the year, not being in conflict with as many events. So that's what we're looking at currently. Just to give you guys an update, we will be making additional announcements in the coming weeks about Flashpoint 2. Hopefully, it'll be a great event. Like Mick said, there's a lot to think about in terms of the studio and also doing things like providing a bubble or entertainment options for the players so that they can not go crazy while just kind of being isolated within this environment. And might be good for some extra content stuff, too, if everybody's just kind of stuck in one
absolutely
quarantine
Flashpoint
space.
Flashpoint Big Brother.
The reality show nobody wanted. Do you want to talk about the Envy changes, Thorin, at all?
What are they?
Legia playing again?
I mean, listen, here's the thing. Even though I do a podcast with Legia, he knows the way. I keep it 100. The problem is I never thought he was a very good pro player. Like, I can understand why maybe him and God B had similar perspective on the game or something, so they wanted to play together for a while. But I always thought, I used to say this even, you have to pick one or the other. You can't have both of them. If you're going to have, because both of them were notoriously low fraggers. So, you can't have two people like that, because then it doesn't matter what the tactics are like. There's no tactic in the world that makes up for not having enough talent. So my big problem with having him in the team is, I've no doubt he's a competent coach and knows a lot about the game and has a lot of insight into the game, but they already had an issue with firepower in that team anyway, in my opinion. So even though one of the players they cut, Ryan, was one of the people who seemed to struggle, I don't feel like they have addressed that issue. So to me, one of the underwhelming things about Envy is this was one of the teams where, if you're Cloud9, I still think you need a roster move anyway. But you know what? Maybe one of those players just gets a little bit better and suddenly it looks more viable. If you're Mad Lions, you already, until the recent Bubsky move, looked like you were improving anyway. If you were Envy, you weren't even good in Flashpoint. You didn't have your real lineup. You haven't done anything since then. You barely even been in the tournaments. You were an org that, for me, had to go and sign a big name player. Not even just because, like, listen, one player wouldn't even turn an NBA around, but it would, like I said before, when you sign a big name player, it sends a message. It says, right, even if today I can't be competitive, I'm going to be in 6 months, I'm going to be in a year. So my issue with that move is it's such an underwhelming move. Like, maybe it'll even make them better, but they weren't a very good team to begin with, unfortunately.
Yeah, and just on this point, Mad Lions look super rough without Bubsky, and MIBR versus EU competition are still underwhelming. Do you think Flashpoint teams will need more roster changes? Yes. Yes, I do think that. I think you would be silly not to think that. Let's see here. Questions about, did you hire Pansy already? I think Pansy's a wonderful commentator. And I don't know. The answer is no. We haven't signed Pansy already. I know she's commentating IEM right now for CSGO, but she's been mostly or ESL, sorry, ESL 1. Sorry, yes. Yeah. ESL 1 Cologne, but she's been doing a lot of Valorant recently too, so I don't know what her career goals are.
The world's her oyster at the moment. If you know like how big she is in PUBG, if she's going to go into Valorant, she'd obviously be an ideal person to shoe into that game because of her experience with all FPS games. She comes Call of Duty, etc. Like it's on her. It's not even on us as to where we want to hire. It depends if she's even available and wants to do it.
Yep, I think she's great.
She's
a really good caster.
It feels a bit like she really loves Counter-Strike as a game, but maybe the community and the fans were not necessarily that nice with her, right? So
yeah. Put it this way: if I went to another game and I was the biggest thing there, and in the original game, people were kind of a bit of a dick to me, like Mick's implying, I might just for petty reasons say, "Fuck those people!" Like I'm not going back to that game. Like they didn't deserve me.
So yeah, I mean, there are I think Thorin talked about this last time. He believes there's a lot of up-and-coming talent within the CSGO scene. We like using up-and-coming talent and giving people opportunities. So I think we will, now that Moses is gone, there's definitely a hole because he was signed for us for this year. We can use people on the analysis couch or analysis set pretty effectively. So we'll see how that all sorts out. We don't have the entire talent roster set for Flashpoint 2 yet.
I just love the people. As an aside, as a quick anecdote, right? When Flashpoint was announced and my role, creative director, was announced, and in all the interviews we mentioned, I would actually be instrumental in picking the talent and setting up, right? So in those things, right, me and Monty, when we were at the press conference, we pointed out that like the premise of Flashpoint is a dream of ours to actually have full creative control in a league, how it looks, even some elements of the format, maybe even who the talent is. Like these are all things we've wanted for a long, long time. One thing that really puzzles me is this. When it was announced like that, the first thing I had was all my DMs and tweets and Instagram and everything that people could contact me through just get flooded by shit tier 2 casters and talent being like, can I work for Flashpoint? It's like, when I said it was my dream to be able to pick stuff, my dream doesn't involve you, a guy I don't know, applying to join like you were asking if there was an available like slot at Burger King. Like, why would my dream be to give you your spot? I tell you what, if you're good, it's my dream. I'll probably come find you. It's sort of invite only, Again, it's our dream, for fuck's sake. What a shit dream. Dream bigger, guys. Just have the paucity of imagination. It's just depressing.
Got to shoot your shot, though, Thorin. You know what I mean?
People say that, but I don't know about that.
I wanted to bring up another question I've seen.
Sure. All right.
Do you see yourself partnering with HLTV to build some rankings that are actually good?
No.
Well, no. I mean, there's some background here. No. Yeah, the answer is no. But mostly because if we partner with HLTV to build a ranking, it would always be seen as a biased ranking,
yes.
And it might be. So it will still not serve our purpose of having like an official independent third-party ranking that everyone can use. But as a matter of fact, we did try to promote the partnership between CSPPA and HLTV. We introduced them and we tried to facilitate conversation between the two parties to try and create a unified ranking. Because on one hand, you have HLTV, which is what everyone thinks is the official ranking of Counter-Strike, right? And then on the other hand, you have the CSPPA saying HLTV ranking is broken because it's just promotes burnout, and players have to go to too many events they don't care about just to stay up in the rankings and so on. So we just said, okay, if you guys work together, then in theory that should be the perfect solution. We have officially recognized by the community, the fans, it's third party, it's certified by the players with CSPPA, and every tournament organizer in the world can use it, maybe including even Valve. It's another big reason, right? For Valve, there's no ranking, like there's no official ranking outside of majors and results in majors. So yeah, that's I think that's a big missed opportunity. I think HLTV and CSPPA should try and figure this out together.
Yeah, I think that would be the ideal solution to all of this. That would help us in the absence of that to answer people's questions for our rankings. One of the things that ESL has done in the past, which has been effective, is to have the teams at the start of an event rank each other. So what you do is every team that attends an event, you ask the team to create a list of the teams, 1 through however many.
Usually 16 or whatever.
16, however many
normally,
teams, right? And then you kind of find the average positions of every team, and you throw out any extreme outliers, and then you just allow the teams through group consensus to seed each other. That's often a more effective way to gauge kind of current power level of teams than using HLTV's rankings, in my opinion.
Yeah, agreed.
Would you prefer the first LAN with crowd that's going to happen would be a major? I don't really care. It's just going to happen when it happens in a safe way. We're not anywhere close to that right now. Love to see Richard in Flashpoint at some point. Certainly a possibility.
Not impossible.
Yep.
Yeah, not impossible.
Does it look like Flashpoint teams are taking the penalty seriously? Mad Lion seems to have actively downgraded and are paying the price right now. It does look like that. I agree. We will be starting those penalties in the fall, and I think we'll be talking more about those in the coming weeks as we release more of that information.
Also, off the top of my head, I think, because I remember one of the weirdest things on CSPPA rankings is I can't even remember the order, because it was almost like someone just threw the names on the floor and like picked them up and was like, yeah, you're number one. But like, I think actually, believe it or not, here's also why it makes no sense that people stupidly think we were involved with making them just because we requested it. Because a little bit of, just use chronology, guys. One, there was a massive scandal recently where we didn't pay them because they didn't fucking do any of that shit. Yes. Two, we didn't even know they were developing this. Hence why we said, like, where's the rankings we asked you to create? We're not giving you the money.
Contractually, and then, we're supposed to pay you to create. I believe that's.
And then three, if we're doing it and we were involved and we're skewing it, our teams, if anything, have done even worse. I think the only team that benefited was Gen G, which bizarrely got to like 7th or something. Everyone else, I think, was even worse. I think they were lower than they were on the HLTV rank if they were Flashpoint teams. So we're not loving it either.
Oh, man. People are asking about DDK, Mick. So do you want to comment on that situation at all? Because obviously the news came out today that he's not going to be full-time with you anymore.
How long was he at FACEIT, by the way? It must be a long time. What, 8 years? 8 years? That's pretty legit.
8? Was it that long? Wow.
I'm guessing.
Yeah, he was. I don't even remember. It was a long time for sure. Yeah, and it was a great story. I remember when we found him. He was producing this pretty interesting Quake Ward analysis videos and posting them on YouTube. He wasn't doing anything live. He wasn't casting anything at the time, but it was pretty interesting, like, to see how he was thinking about the game, the meta, and explaining some certain the dynamics. And obviously, Quake Ward is a pretty hardcore old school game. So I remember we reached out to him and we asked him, have you ever tried to do any live commentary? And he said, no. And then we said, okay, would you like to try? And he said yes. And he flew over and came to Milan, and from there the rest of it is history. It's definitely sad to see him go. At the same time, I understand his decision. And while at the time it made a lot of sense to have him full time, working across a lot of different projects for FACEIT. He obviously started with Quake Live, not even Counter-Strike, right? He transitioned to Counter-Strike afterwards. But now I think there's space for him to do a lot of things. He's involved in a lot of different games. He's producing his own shows. So in a way, it was already quite some time that he was working more as a freelancer rather than a full-time employee. So this was kind of a natural transition.
Yeah.
Yeah. By the way, it's a testament, by the way, to the amount of work DDK put in a CS:GO that people now associate him with Counter-Strike. This guy came from Quake. Like, normally people who make the transition from like a fairly different game like that, they don't make it. They fall in the chasm between. They're either never accepted or they never quite get the game in a sense. Like, I've always admitted fully, like, one of the reasons I don't waste my time trying to learn like all the elements of like how the comps work in League of Legends is like, for some reason it just doesn't speak to me in the same way that other games do. Like, I can understand Counter-Strike or Quake or StarCraft way better than those. So for whatever reason, like, I just knew it'd take me 10 times more hours just to sort of like unlearn other things and get all that info in. So I never did it. But people don't know that story that Mick's telling there. That just shows like DDK's mind. Because basically when he's curious about something, he'll just latch on to it and he'll just go all in on it. Yes. So if people don't know, DDK came up as a pro in like Quake 3 and then in Quake 4, right? These games, even though they have the word Quake, are totally different to Quake World, because Quake World is like basically a game with zero nerfs. It's one of the most hardcore FPS games ever. And when he went and started playing it, by the way, he didn't come from Quake World. That wasn't his first game. This motherfucker went back to Quake World when everyone else had left it, right? When it had been around for 10 years. And if you went in the scene, all the people you were playing were like motherfuckers from Finland who'd literally been playing that entire 10 years on 9 ping, who knew everything about the game. So he really had to just like go all into, like, that's why he was doing these videos, because he basically figured out loads of shit about the game from playing it, talking to people, watching demos. So it's just a testament to his work ethic.
Yeah. People don't know, like, he was a phenomenal StarCraft 2 player as well. Like he was
also went into StarCraft. Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So very versatile, definitely.
Yeah, and so in regards to DDK continuing to do Flashpoint, we'll have to see what, where his career is going to take him. He's going to be on Pop Flash, our Valorant tournament, next week. He's been heavily invested in streaming Valorant these days. He casted the last Ignition Series event as well. He's making his own show on Valorant, so maybe that's the direction he wants to take things. But I'm excited to be working with him next week, at the very least. Regarding Pop Flash, is the prize pool $50,000 for first place and nothing for the rest? Prize pool is, I believe, $25,000 for first place currently, $50,000 in total. I don't have the exact breakdown right in front of me, but it will be broken down by tiers after.
I can find it.
How many teams are in it?
8.
Yes.
Yeah, it was 25 first. I'm guessing 10 second or 12 second or something. 5 third.
Yeah, something like that.
So it's 25, 12.5, 7.5.
They just basically, yeah, exactly. Kind of a standard progression if you followed sports a long time, esports.
Does Flashpoint have any ambitions to be granted a major by Valve? Not really.
We don't, but then again, the one thing that starts making me think maybe is when I see Valve just let everyone who has the majors play God and just go over everyone else's events. So that starts to make it feel attractive at that point in time. But aside from that, no, not really. I mean, first of all, as we talked about in the first question, it's really hard to run majors. So, I've never run a major. So, as I said before, I give it up to ESL for that. Like, as far as I'm concerned, the people who get the majors should be either ESL or people who've proven they can do it. That's one of the things I actually personally have a different opinion to most people. I don't like to just give it to someone who's never done one before. I want you to show me you've done a big stadium event with like massive fan base, 5, 6, 7 days. Because if you can do that, then I feel confident you'll pull off the major. But it's hard to do them, mate. Everyone who's never done one before, you notice the first ones are nearly always the dodgy ones. There's the other problem as well. ESL's done about bloody like 8 of them or something. So they're also the most experienced. Starlad has done one, MLG did one. Everyone else has only done one, really. There's like DreamHack in the old days. Aside from that, there's almost no one with experience doing them, unfortunately.
I would say the only other people who did one was like E-League, but obviously Turner knows how to do stadium events, right? Or MLG.
They also proceed out completely. Like the first one was just in the theater. It was like way smaller than it
Well,
should
what
have
about the
been.
Columbus
So-
major? MLG's used to running stadium events though as well, so they're a company that actually had that competency, but prior to attempting to run a major. Yeah, I would say like for us, the purpose of Flashpoint's existence is to bring financial stability to the scene and do kind of long-term events, not necessarily to, and also with our own format and kind of flavor. And we can't do our own format with a major.
Yes. That's a sticking point for me as well. I don't want to do it and then have to do whatever Swiss system they tell you have to do. Like, I'm not interested in doing that tournament. Let someone else do that.
Yeah. So maybe, but probably not. Will the next blind spot segment at Flashpoint 2 feature Anders trying out and rating certain recreational substances? You know what? I can never. If it's legal in that place, you can never.
Well, you know what? That guy jokes, but I'm not joking. If you actually did want to do a segment like this, I can already think of a very obvious one that Anders, by the way, would 100% do, and he would be really interested in. Anders is very interested in the field of nootropics, like how you use chemicals to attenuate your mind, thinking, sleep patterns, concentration. So no joke, I could see him doing a segment where he basically shows like what his research on supplements, etc., tells you about like what he thinks is good for gaming, like if you want to stay up all night playing a game, or if you want to be focused for 3 hours. I think people might actually be interested in that, and obviously it's kind of weird thing that he'd probably like to do content about, I believe.
Yeah, look, all I'm saying is I'm down for the Weed Map sponsorship too. Like, I have no personal aversion to any of this. If it's legal in your place of residence and you are, half you guys are indulging in these substances while watching Flashpoint anyway. So
in many ways, that also would be like a childhood dream realized. Not really, obviously, when I was a child, I grew older, disenfranchised, and stopped paying attention. No, but I think it would be cool if, as part of an awkward sponsor segment like everyone has in esports, they had to be like, "Oh, hey Thorin, wow, your weed has arrived," and someone just brings in like a big box of some during yeah, you know what? In many ways, I'd look back and go, "This industry's changed a lot for the better." Then I just think of that event. I remember, I won't say which event it was, but there was an event a couple of years ago where, because it was so late into the day that they were running, some of the casters just had a beer, and then a guy from the event came in and was screaming. I'm like, "What are you doing? That's so professional." So, like, all I'm going to say is, contrasted against that, I'd like someone to just come in and hand me a big box of weed.
Yeah. So I'm just saying, for any companies that are interested in this, we can create some really interesting shows or content for you. Please come. I'm personally interested. Also, for the blind spot, beer, spirits. Let's go. Let's go. We're a show for adults, guys. We're a show for adults. I don't have any issues with this from an ethical standpoint or anything else. So anyway, that's going to do it for us today on the Q&A. Thank you very much for joining us. We'll be back next week, and you can ask us the questions then. Thank you to Mick for coming on and spending his European evening for us. You fled to Europe to avoid the coronavirus situation in Los Angeles. I wish I could be in Europe right now. Maybe I will be soon. All right, later.
Thank you, guys.